Hello, I'm Carl Jacobs and I'm co-founder and CEO of Apicbase. At Apicbase, we are building the world's best food and beverage management platform. But in this podcast series, it's all about finding answers on how to grow and scale your food service business. I'm talking to numerous experts and industry professionals who are passionate about building a healthy food service industry. Join me on this fascinating journey of entrepreneurship in food. Hello and welcome back to the Food Service Growth Show. Here's another episode, and today I have Peter Schimpl with me. He's the VP Digital and IT of LOsteria. It's a German or mainly German chain. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
It's a pleasure to have you. Actually, in the preparations for this podcast, already quite some interesting things were mentioned. So I'm happy to have you. But as always, the first question is, please, can you please briefly introduce yourself so that people know who is Peter Schimpl, where is he coming from, and what is your job at LOsteria?
Yes, my name is Peter. So I'm 58 years old, proud father of a son, and I'm 30 plus years now in the industry. So I started in the industry at McDonald's, where I started as programmer as McDonald's for the POS system and for the back office systems, and made my way through. And then I led the McDonald's IT for the German market and 10 smaller markets around Germany for at least 15 years, and decided then to become an entrepreneur. Since at McDonald's, I learned to love innovation, technology innovation, and I worked together with my colleagues then in France to introduce self-order kiosk and digital menu boards to the German, Austrian, Polish, Russian market. And then I worked as a freelancer for 1 year, and as LOsteria, since they need a little bit support on how to digitalize, how to set up digitalization, as this was one of three pillars where they defined growth. And after I was there 1 year on as consultant, they asked me whether I like to lead the department and to start digitalization or to continue with digitalization at LOsteria. And there I am for almost 1.5 years now in the official position and 1.5 years in the consulting position at LOsteria.
All right. And for the people that don't know LOsteria, can you summarize the concept and the idea behind the chain?
Yes, LOsteria was founded in 1999, so we celebrate 25 years of LOsteria this year, in Nuremberg from two guys called Friedemann Findeis and Klaus Roder. And Klaus Roder was one of the youngest franchisees of McDonald's. And it was a little bit more an accident when they founded LOsteria, since this was their base station restaurant in Nuremberg, and the owner decided to go back to Italy. They say, you cannot let this go. This is full every day. You're very good in what you're doing. And then Klaus decided to buy the restaurant for cheap money, since he was going back to Italy. And when they started the restaurant, they had one challenge. So all the Italian chefs left. And Friedemann did not know how to cook fish and meat and things like this, since he was coming from McDonald's. So then it was born pizza and pasta. And that's where we were for today's. In pizza and pasta, he could do very good. And it was, and this was born. And Klaus had the spirit of McDonald's. So he understood how important it is to systemize, to make things, to make rules and things like this. And so they started slowly the expansion. And LOsteria is now around 170 plus restaurants. We will be 200 plus by the end of this year. We plan to open 30 plus this year restaurants, 40 plus in 2025 and 50 plus in 2026. So very challenging, and at the moment we have about 7,000 employees, and we're in 9 markets, most European markets. We are in. So a very good story, very growing. We're growing about double digits every year in sales as well. So very successful. Thanks God, very successful, and expansion will go on in Europe.
Oh, that's a fantastic story, and it's actually interesting to hear that the founders came from McDonald's, or one of them came from McDonald's. So, what was process management then? Was it already, part of the really initial days of L'Osteria, or was this something that was added later on?
No, it was at the beginning in the first restaurant. Not since they had to survive in the first restaurant, so they had no clue about how to do Italian restaurants, how to do full service and things like this. And Friedewald always told me he was always calling Klaus, and Klaus is saying how it's going. He
Hmm.
was sitting in this McDonald's restaurant and called Friedman, or Friedman called Klaus, going, and said, I'm running out. The restaurant is full, but Klaus is only hearing restaurant is full. I'm fine. So, and then they started the idea to expand it. And then
Hmm.
they needed to have processes in place. They needed to have rules in place. They needed to have systems in place to make it bigger. And of course, the DNA of McDonald's from Klaus and Friedemann helped them both to systemize LOsteria and to start or to build the base from where
Hmm.
we are right now.
All right. So, in your introduction, you mentioned that you were leading the digitalization at the moment in L'Osteria. How big is your team?
The team is quite small. We're about 10 people. We will be get a little bit more this year, since we focus this year a little bit more on data. Um, a pretty small team. And why this is small? Since we focus on standard software. So it's more to
Mhm.
adapt to standards out of the software and not customizing the software to our standards. And this is one of the challenges we
Mhm.
always face.
Mhm.
So if you do customization and reach the 80+% to try, since the last 20% is the hardest one. And if you go
Yes,
for
yes.
this route, you need a bigger IT department. You need to make sure that you have developers. You make to make sure, as long as you're able to go with the standard, with the industry standards provided by the software, you
Yeah.
can drive this with a relatively small group of people, and fight this challenge every day. That, of course, operations likes to have their 100% their stats, and you
Mhm.
have to say, okay, no, this is standard. We go with the standard, and for this reason, we have a small team of 10 people running the whole IT for the head office and for all of the restaurants.
All right. Um, Very interesting actually to hear that you are going with, let's say, the standard software. But before we go there, when they asked you 1.5 years ago to lead that department, how do you start such an assignment? I mean, how do you go about from the idea to digitize and to improve on that matter to where you are today, and what is the plan that you actually presented to the founders or the boards in order to go digital?
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting question, since the first thing where I'm a strong believer in digitalization, don't do digitalization on a project.
Hmm.
Build a digitalization strategy first. Build an
Hmm.
ecosystem, build a target where you like to be. So we built about 3 or 4 bubbles. We said for the restaurants, BI, and then on this we built smaller bubbles where we said, okay, this is our digitalization strategy. We call this L'Osteria Digital Ecosystem.
Hmm.
Uh, Otherwise, if you not build an ecosystem first or a strategy how to digitalize, you will digitalize islands, but
Hmm.
they will
Hmm.
not fit together, and you will not have an I should overview. For this reason, we call it our bubble chart, where we had wrap bubbles, a lot of wrap bubbles at the beginning and a lot of connections. But now you see them bubbles turning green. So we put this one, and everybody can see what is our strategy, and we work against the strategy, and not
Hmm.
on the islands. It's not on urgencies and not on. So if everything is urgent, nothing is urgent. But
Yeah.
you know that there is some urgent things coming on, and to have the strategy in place and work against the strategy
Yeah.
keeps us focused on
Yeah.
projects, keeps us focused on the way we like to go. And this was the first thing we did together with operations to build our digitalization strategy. And we call the strategy the digital ecosystem, LOsteria digital ecosystem. And now we work since 2 years against the dots in the ecosystem we defined.
Can you tell a bit about these bubbles or these pillars in your ecosystem? Which are the ones that you are filling in? Which are the ones that are the first ones you needed to tackle? What's the structure behind it?
Yeah, the first one was restaurant systems. So
Okay.
restaurant systems was itself the biggest bubble, since our money comes from the restaurants. We focus on the restaurant. We get good service out of the restaurants.
Hmm.
There's a lot of bubbles, from inventory management to POS system to people system, to a lot of bubbles we have to tackle first.
Hmm.
The biggest challenge we had at the beginning was the POS system. We had to replace the POS system, since this was the biggest project we had. So you have to replace the POS system by innovative new one, which is supporting full service. Then we built the bubble called CRM. The challenge we had, or the challenge, not the challenge we had, the challenge usually in the restaurant industry is that we don't know anything about our customers. So
Hmm.
in the in
Hmm.
the in the past, you did not need to know. So they come in, eat pizza. If you know them, and you're fine. But now with marketing needs to target the customers better. They need to know that you need to know which channels they're using. You need to know how often they come, what they eating, what they don't like, and things like this. And we was challenged by marketing to do this, since our head of marketing comes from Mont Blanc and
Hmm.
Thomas Sabo. So of
Yeah.
course, if you buy a pen for $500, you leave your data there. So,
Yeah.
but if you buy a pizza for $13, maybe not. And but he challenged us. He said one of the bubbles need to be CRM.
Yeah.
And then we had the third bubble was
So,
analytics.
so can I ask quickly
Yeah.
about the CRM bubble? Is this is really about customer loyalty? It's like catching your customer and making sure he returns. Is that the end goal of CRM?
The end goal is loyalty is one of the tools we are using to understand our customer better. But
Hmm.
there's other
Hmm.
tools like webshop. When they order for delivery or pickup, we
Hmm.
get data from them.
Yeah.
When they come in or do the newsletter, we got data from them. So, and we said, okay, customer relationship management is so important in the future. It's not the important thing today, but it may be an advantage in 2 to 3 years if you know your customer better than anybody else. And
Yes.
this
Yes.
was
Yes.
the reason we had this as big pillar uh, on our side, beside the
Okay.
restaurant systems. And the third big bubble, what we had was analytics
Hmm.
data. Since all these systems is generating data, but the challenge we had, if you generate data, you don't have information. So we have to transform the data into information. And this was the third bubble. Said if we have this customer relationship, if we have the restaurant systems, if we have the
Hmm.
back office systems right, we generate a huge amount of data, and then we have to build up analytics and BI for this data to be smarter than we was
Yeah.
before.
And is this something that you want to do in house, or is this also something that you want to do with standard tools in the market?
Well, this is a, a challenge question. Since we did it not in-house, we use standard tools for the last couple of years,
Hmm.
since there was no team to build data. You don't have data engineer, data scientists, but we're more and more coming to the conclusion that we need to own our data.
Hmm.
And this is, and of course, everybody tells you, if I buy, for example, Apicbase and I have my recipes in, of course, I own the data. That's my recipes. But this is not what we mean. Owning the data is meaning where they're coming from, how they transformed into information. Maybe you aggregate them, you
Hmm.
do calculations on them. So the level is we need to understand where they're coming from exactly, how they're
Hmm.
coming from, what are the data points provided, for example, by Apicbase or Lightspeed, our POS, we could use for the analytics. Secondly, we need to see which data points we are using and how we need aggregations for it. And the third one is KPIs. Clearly,
Yeah.
KPI. We need to identify and know our KPIs.
Yes.
So I give an example. In the food industry, it's usually have comparable restaurants. If you open 30, 40, 50 restaurants a year
Mm-hmm.
and you make a comparison against last year, of course you're better since you open 30 restaurants. So, but you have to calculate this out, and this means comparable. So if
Yes.
you say comparable, and the KPI of comparable can be different. Our owner make wins at comparable 13 months. We say
Yeah.
comparable 12 months. So you
Mm-hmm.
need to have a clear definition of your KPI to trust your KPI. So if
Yeah.
you don't have a clear definition, what is net sales, what is productivity of members, what are cost of sales, theoretical food cost, all this stuff, if you're not clear in your definitions on the KPI, you cannot trust the KPIs you see. And this is
Uh-huh.
the what we say, own your data, is to have full control from the source, know what is possible to get on information from the transformation to the analytics.
Yeah.
And we think that this in the future, this will be need to be in our hands.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, what we see in especially in larger chains is that you indeed work with, standard software to solve the day-to-day operational or problems, let's say, inventory management, posting, all of these things, and that you then kind of pull in all of that data into a data lake, and that you build your own business intelligence on top of that in Power BI or any other tool that is out there. So you kind of you are on the knobs, on the buttons, to make sure that you get the right data in the right place, and that you can use them throughout the whole organization, both from operational point of view all the way up to the board level, basically.
Mm.
Then that makes total sense, actually. So very interesting, actually, to hear you talk about these three big bubbles, and about the different segments that you are digitizing. Is there also a time frame that you have defined for yourself, like in 2025, 26, 2030, whenever we need to be fully digitized?
Yes, there is a time frame, but how I could show you the picture. So the bubbles, we did not have fixed lines or really straight bubbles. So
Mhm,
why we are using this? So we think this is a living organism. It's a
mhm,
breathing system. So you cannot. It will never end.
mhm.
Unfortunately for digitalization, fortunately for us as well, it will never end. But we call it a breathing system. Some things will, some bubbles will come in, some will disappear, some will
Yeah,
get different connections than they had before. Um, there's a lot of examples how to do it, like tax inclusion, fiscalization, regulations which need to be adopted, or new things like artificial intelligence we have to take a look at. Maybe they help us in the kitchen, maybe they help us in the back office, maybe they just help us in formulating emails or
mhm,
newsletters or something else to the customers. And we started to do AI right now in marketing for translation to the 9 markets where we're in. So
yeah,
it's not done anymore by a translator, it's done automatically. Even the voices are translated. And this is for this reason we think, yes, we will get better. We will more green bubbles, but new bubbles will appear. And this is and we call it, we like to have it in a breathing, we like to keep it breathing,
yeah,
get it
yeah.
expanded and shrink it down if not needed, and adapt it where needed. So yes, hopefully we will done the smaller bubbles, tick it off, but there will come new bubbles at any time.
Yes. Yeah, that's unfortunate with digitization. It is a never-ending story.
Yeah.
Um, let us zoom in then into a few of those bubbles that you already did, or are doing. What is a time frame? If you take, for example, the point of sales, the change from one point of sales to another in 150 plus outlets, What's the time? How do you go about?
So our time frame, what we do now is, for example, the POS system. We
Mm-hmm.
changed it from the decision which supplier we're using
Mm-hmm.
to the last restaurant applied with the new system was about 9 months.
9 months.
So
That's
the
fast.
really rollout took about 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
What we say is we cannot allow ourselves to have forever running IT project. So nobody will go with you if you say it's 15, 18, 20, 24 months. So we have to deliver the first results within 6 months. So this was always our goal with all digitalization projects. For example, loyalty. We started loyalty in April, March. We made a decision and
Mm-hmm.
rolled it out in August
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
most of the stores. We did the same for the POS system. We aim the same right now for business intelligence. We have a project called LOsteria operating system, which we're rolling out. So
Mm-hmm.
we did the decision on the supplier on Friday, and we
Mm-hmm.
need to be live in the stores on September,
All
latest
right.
of September.
Yeah.
So this is our challenge. So if you do something, provide the customers, my internal customers like restaurants, with an result, even if it's not 100% within 6 months. And this is
Yeah.
what I said at the beginning. It's very important to stick on standards. Since if you start doing customization on this and taking here some things, you will never do it within 6 months. So you have to stick
Yeah.
as delivered with the tools to be sure that you are able to do it.
And how do you manage the buy-in of your internal customers then? Because I can imagine that sometimes they say again another project.
Yeah, we have about, at the moment we have third. We have 46 restaurant with joint venture where we own at least 50%. We have
Mm-hmm.
36 restaurants with about 15 franchise partners, and we own 61 uh, restaurants. So for the 61 restaurants, I have to go to the COO and say, okay, let's do it. For the joint venture, I have to go to the COO and the CFO since they own 50%. So it has to make sense. But the most important ones and the good ones are the franchise partners since they have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And these are the first one I go with ideas and things and discuss with them. We have a panel called Franchise Leadership Council. There are three
Mm-hmm.
people in, and they play very openly. And these are the first ones, since the easy ones are the company stores.
Yeah.
And they challenge me. And this is the most important part, that you get challenged to this. And oh, that's too expensive. We cannot do this one. We don't like it like you did it this way. For this reason, I always used to go to the franchise first,
Mm-hmm.
since they challenge me on every aspect of the solution. And then I build it for them. And then I go the easy one for rollout. I do it the opposite way. I do the tests and the rollout. I start with the company stores, go to the joint venture, and last I go to the franchises.
All right. All right. And then do the franchisees have the power to potentially, you know, uh, stop a project that say that they say no, we don't believe in this. Let's not do this. So you don't do this for the entire operation.
Yes, sometimes yes. If it's a system standard, if it's defined as system standard, they cannot opt out. But
Mm.
if it's an optional solution, then they can of course say we're opting out of the solution. We don't take it, and then maybe my business case does not work anymore,
Mm-hmm.
or they have a different solution like reservation system. If they say we have a reservation system, it's a standard system. If you like to, so the system standard says you have to have an electronic reservation system
Mm-hmm.
on the website. But if they say we don't like yours, it's too expensive, it does not deliver, so they can have a different one.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge we have is to have always the best on the market, since we like to have 100% on ours, and to make sure that we are good enough that they buy our solutions.
Yeah. All right. And um, how do you then make sure that now I hear a little bit of potential that they can, decide for themselves which system they use. But especially because you're 9 markets, that also means that the systems you work with should be available in these 9 markets. So you only go for, let's say, global systems, or do you have systems that do the same thing but are different providers in different markets?
Yes, especially where we have different things, we try to get as much, and we have as well and when we opened the market in Poland this year,
Hmm.
we like to have our system. Last year, it was last year. We like to have our system, but sometimes we cannot. Like we have no POS, since
Hmm.
POS in Poland needs a special fiscalization.
Yeah, yeah.
But then
So
we have,
there you had to go to a different solution.
yeah, and then we go together with the franchise partner to say, okay, what can we do with the solution? So
Hmm.
we said, okay, we'd like to have it on the cloud. We don't like servers in the restaurants. It need to be on the browser. It need to be availability. We need to have open APIs to get the data out of the system, and we help them select the right one.
Hmm.
But we always try, and with the new owner, with the McMinn family, maybe we have about then two standards
Yeah.
where we can say, okay, one of these should work in the different, but we continue working with our partners on software to say, okay, we need to go in this market, but sometimes software, like especially POS system with fiscalization or labor scheduling system, which is
Hmm.
very different to each market, what are the
Yes.
labor scheduling rules and things like this. We have to give it to the franchisee to say, we expect you to have one. We support you selecting one, but we cannot give you ours since it's not working, whatever, in the Swiss market, Austrian market, Polish market.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that is a common issue with the personnel planning and human resources, that
Mm.
all countries have different rules and laws, and not everybody can comply to them. That's something we hear quite often. Um, Let me move into another field, because in the beginning you mentioned one of the bubbles is the restaurant and the point of sales we've touched upon, but you also mentioned inventory management as being an important one. Can you elaborate a little bit why you think it's an important topic?
Yes, inventory management is one of our most important topics. The reason it's not about inventory, the reason is about creating data we don't have right now.
Hmm.
Because at the moment we have our cost of sales. Cost of sales are built from whatever theoretical, which is the recipe, gives us the theoretical cost. Then
Hmm.
you have theoretical usage, which is coming from the POS.
Hmm.
And then you do the inventory to compare theory to practice,
Yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah.
see what is the difference. And if you have a big company with 170 restaurants, you have whatever waste of millions of euro. You have food cost, which is different from restaurant to restaurant. One restaurant has whatever 25%, the other restaurant 80. So the
I hope
theoretical
not, but
is maybe good, but we don't know whether 18 is really good for.
18. I thought you were saying
Yeah,
80,
18,
80.
18 would be too much, I guess. But 1.8, if we don't know, it's good, since
Yeah.
it maybe look good, but maybe the quality is not there. So he
Hmm.
has not the right amount of slices on the pizza and things like this.
Hmm.
And inventory management helps us really to
Hmm.
generate data points we can measure, to give us certainty on the data. So at the moment, we don't have a real certainty on the data. We think we know, since we got an
Hmm.
inventory every month, mainly for finance,
Hmm.
but we need three inventories.
Yeah.
We need a daily inventory to see what is stolen. We need a weekly inventory to see what to order, and we need a monthly inventory for finance.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We need to have the theoretical usage and the recipes out of the POS system. And for us, it's more to learn more, to create the data, create out of data information to make the right decisions,
Yeah.
or to, how should I say, prepare right decisions by the executives. If we see that there is an increase in food cost, if we see there is the recipes does not work, if we
Hmm.
test new things like brunch and things like this, and the cost of sales does not work, uh, this can lead to wrong strategic decisions for the whole company if we have
Hmm.
not a data part out of inventory management.
Hmm.
So as a summary, inventory management is for me getting data, receiving data. It's not about uh, the inventory management itself, but what for me is important to get the data out and
Yeah.
to motivate the people to put the data right in, since this is a challenging part, since they at the moment they look at the delivery note and they say, okay, tick off, everything is okay. Now
Yeah.
I ask them, please enter it to the system,
Yeah. 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 So
order
that's
over
a
the system, enter it over the system, do inventory. At the moment they do it monthly. If I say I need a daily inventory, I need a weekly, please do it.
mhm.
And this is the challenge in part of inventory system, since I have to confirm the managers out in the restaurants to do it right, that I get the right data for it.
Mm, mm. And how do you manage that change? What are the things that you are doing to make sure that they do this?
It's transparency. So they give us the data, we give them back transparency. We give them back power. And this is all about the LOsteria operating system, what we're building right now.
Mm-hmm.
Give them power back. So they give us the data, we give them the power back to make the right decisions. And this
All
is
right.
all about the LOsteria operating system. It's divided in people, and especially people, then cost of food. We call it product. There's 5 pages. And we show them exactly their numbers. We show them this is your numbers. You're not ranked number whatever 24 within your
Mm-hmm.
bucket. Um, and we give them the power to make us say, what are the 4 things we do together for the next month to get
Mm-hmm.
this number better? Your cost of sales, your productivity on the people, and there's a lot of KPIs.
Mm-hmm.
And we like to give them the power back, that they are able to see what happens if I enter data right. Then I get the right KPIs, that I get the right information. I can make very good decisions on my restaurant businesses. This is how we try to get them with the LOsteria operating system.
Mm-hmm.
And there's on all aspects. There's an overview on the restaurants. There's a sales part. There's a people part. There's a product part. There's a cost part. We call it OCC, as a controllable cost,
Mm-hmm.
where they can manage. And we give them sheets where we outline all the data they have, and they can then decide on their restaurant what is the best to do for next month. What is the 3 things, 4 things you like to focus on next month?
Mm-hmm.
And even with the LOsteria operating system, we try to get it to the assistant level. It's not only the manager of the restaurant, we like to get it to the assistant as well, since the assistant will be the manager of the future. And they're not used to work with data right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is a buzzword we are always using as well, as data-driven company, but this is
Yeah.
very important. They need to learn to work against data and not out of gut feeling. So uh, to
That's
analyze
a big
the data, to
challenge, huh?
see the data, to make the right decision based on data and not on,
No,
I
no.
feel we could lead a little bit more, sell it, since I hope the weather will be better. And we need to help them to give them the right data. And if they provide us the data, we provide them the best decision base they can have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Very interesting, actually. It's very intriguing. Um, I have two more questions for you. The first one is going back to your time at McDonald's. I mean, McDonald's is such a big organization worldwide. Wherever you go, you basically eat the same hamburger. Can you tell us a little bit about what can a restaurant chain, a smaller restaurant chain, learn from such a big giant as McDonald's from a digitization perspective, and how they use data?
Yeah, McDonald's focused a lot in digitalization, and you have to acknowledge McDonald's has a 5-year advance of all the other brands. So
Mhm.
what McDonald's did, they invested and they was brave enough to introduce digitalization. They was the first one introducing uh, electronic payment. They was the first one introducing self-order kiosks. They was the first one introducing Drive. They was the first one introducing uh, digital menu boards. They was the first one introducing AI into the digital menu board. So, and I think what you can learn about McDonald's, be brave, start. It's easy. You cannot. So you have already no digitalization. It cannot be worse. It can only be better. And if
Yeah.
you if you allow the people to digitalize. Since the important thing we need to learn from McDonald's is, if you look at McDonald's, is if McDonald's does it, it's innovation. It sometimes become standard, and
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes a disadvantage for you if you don't have it.
Yeah.
I don't think smaller chains like LOsteria don't need to be on the edge of innovation. That's the McDonald's can do, Burger King can do, the big ones can do. But we need to find out, okay, what of the things they are doing
Mm-hmm.
will be expected standard from the customer in the next 1 and 2 years, like
Mm-hmm.
electronic payment. If I see a lot of small restaurants, they don't accept electronic payment,
Yeah.
especially in Germany. I don't see them in Netherlands or in the UK, but in Germany, you see a lot of restaurants that also don't accept credit cards.
Yeah.
And I think this will be a disadvantage if you don't have it now. And for fast food or for quick service restaurants, will be the self for the kiosk that people expect to see one. And for our industry, it will be, I'd say, electronic reservations,
Mm-hmm.
online ordering,
Mm-hmm.
pickup, and of course payment at the table and ordering at the table. This will be the one we're focusing on right now, that the
Mm-hmm.
people, to give them back their time, they don't have to wait on the waiter, so they can check out directly on the table
Yeah.
or reorder directly on the table.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's not really hard. There's a lot of tools right now out, and you can start easily, you can start cheap. Don't be afraid to do it. It will be uh, it cannot be worse than it is without digitalization.
Yeah. And I heard you briefly managing, L'Osteria doesn't need to be on the edge of innovation, so leave that to the bigger ones. But is this let's say true over the whole line? Let's say, do you leave the real innovation to the world players, or how do you see that?
No, we don't leave it to them, but we
Mm-hmm.
select, I think, wisely. We try to select wisely on the tip. So if you start too early, you have very high costs for
Mm-hmm.
the product, which is not stable on the market right now.
Yeah.
So it was, if you take the highest processor on the computer, on the laptop, you pay a huge amount of money for the laptop for minimum increase of speed. So we like to get in this tipping point where we said,
Yeah.
okay, it's an innovation, but it's affordable. It's an
Okay.
innovation you can select out of 2 or 3 customers. It's an
Mm-hmm.
innovation, but we have stable products out there we could choose for digitalization.
Yeah.
And this is more, it's not against innovation. Sometimes we have to lead the market,
Mm-hmm.
if it's especially food service. So we selected a POS system, Lightspeed, which is fully cloud based
Mm-hmm.
and on the blockchain. Uh,
Yeah.
why we did this? So it was there, it was stable, it was developed, and we could reduce complexity in the infrastructure in the restaurants completely. We get
Yeah.
rid of all the servers. Now we have only switches and 2 routers in the restaurant to balance the traffic. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end, this is so much what you can gain if you choose digitalization or innovation at the right, on the tipping point where the price is going down, the stability is going up.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. My last question is also one I ask all my guests, and it's the question about trends. It's, where do you see the food service industry evolving, and what are the things that we need to keep an eye on for the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years?
Oh, this is a hard one. So the food service industry, I believe, if they focus on their strengths that we have in full service right now, um, do not go crazy with the QSR, comparing to QSR. Get in your lane, stay in your lane. Then you have a lot of chances right now. I think
Mhm.
what we need to work on is really on the data, to get our data right, since the environment will be tougher. And then think solutions like Apicbase, like Lightspeed, where you get data out, will
Mhm.
become more important. And I think digitalization is now common ground. It's expected by the customers, by the guests. And I think
Mhm.
if you use it wisely over the next couple, 1, 2, 3 years, you can get a lot out of it. If it's self checkout, even for full service, we see tips going up for our servers, which means the servers get better. We see
Uh-huh.
through electronic payment. We see self-checkout we're testing right now in France. So from day one, we introduced, but not told the customers, but even we had 30% where they paid directly on the table to QR code. And of course, the awareness in social media is a very important part for us. Since if you only increase the Google rating, or we call it the score, if you scale the score from 4.18 to 4.27, it gives you a huge amount of boost in customers. So don't let go on these channels. Take care and use the tools that are out there, and take a look at what the customers expect from you.
All right. Okay. Fantastic, Peter. This was a very, very interesting episode. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you also to all of our audience to tune in. And if you want to hear more about food service industry, just check our website, thefoodservicegrowthshow.com, where you can find even more episodes all about scaling your food service business. Peter, thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.